1. No end in sight on India's coronavirus strategy. India must learn from other countries in devising strategies to contain the epidemic. If it took 94 days to reach 1 million novel coronavirus cases on April 3 after China reported the first cluster of 41 cases to WHO on December 31, the number of days needed to double to 2 million sharply reduced to 12. It again took just 12 more days to cross 3 million cases globally on April 27 night. The virus has now spread to 188 countries, regions. The true number of infections will be several-fold higher as most countries have not been testing people who have mild or no symptoms. For instance, in the US, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has said that those with mild symptoms of COVID-19 who do not meet the criteria for priority testing will not be tested. While new cases have declined in Europe, there is an uptick in Africa and South America. The virus is still spreading quickly in the US with 0.99 million cases. It has the most number of cases globally, a little more than 4 times that of Spain, which has the second most number of cases. There have been over 2.1 lakh deaths worldwide, with the US again accounting for the most, over 56,600, which is double that of Italy, over 27,000. New York City alone has 17,515 deaths, which is multiple times higher than that of many countries. The mortality figures too may be an underestimation. India has reported over 30,300 cases and 973 deaths based on data collated from states. The number of cases has multiplied several-fold from over 600 since the national lockdown from March 25. At nearly 8,600 cases, Maharashtra has the maximum in the country. Dharavi alone has 330 cases and 18 deaths. With a population close to 100,000 that lives cheek by jowl, physical distancing is an impossible luxury. A central team has indicated that nearly 3,000 people might need institutional quarantine in the absence of effective containment in Dharavi. In this context, India could look at the experience of Singapore. Much appreciated for its efforts in almost containing the spread of the virus early on, the city-state has seen numbers rising since late March. Fresh cases have been reported from dormitories that house over 0.2 million migrant workers from other countries. The crowding in the dormitories, which is akin to what is seen in Dharavi and other slums in India, has provided an ideal setting for easy infection spread. Despite shutting down educational institutions and workplaces on April 3, when the number of cases was 1,114, and moving many workers to alternative accommodation and quarantining others, it has not been able to contain the spread. Nearly 15,000 cases have been reported as on April 28. As India nears the end of its extended lockdown, it needs to learn from the successes and failures of other countries. 2. Signaling support on RBI relief for mutual funds. RBI's liquidity facility for mutual funds still hinges on banks' willingness to lend. The Reserve Bank of India's decision to open a special facility to ensure the availability of adequate liquidity for the mutual fund industry is a timely move in signaling to investors that the central bank is alert to the need to preserve financial stability in these challenging times. In assigning 50,000 crore rupees exclusively for commercial banks to lend to mutual funds, the RBI made clear on Monday that it wants to tamp down on any buildup of liquidity strains at mutual fund houses in the wake of heightened volatility in the capital markets and increased redemption pressures as a fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. The proximate trigger for the central bank's move was last week's announcement by Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund that it was winding up 6 debt funds that collectively had assets under management (AUM) amounting to about 26,000 crore rupees. The RBI has rightly recognized the urgent need to ward off any incipient contagion impact from the closure of these 6 funds. With the overall industry-wide AUM for debt funds at about 15 rupees lakh crore, it was crucial for the banking regulator to reassure investors that liquidity need not be a concern while deciding on whether to retain or redeem their investments in these mutual funds. The Association of Mutual Funds in India (AMFI) had, separately, last week, sought to assure investors that a majority of debt fund schemes had invested in superior credit quality securities and had appropriate liquidity to back the normal operations. While the facility is a straightforward 90-day repo-based lending window from which banks can avail credit to provide loans to mutual funds, there are concerns about the banking industry's willingness to expose itself to the credit risk involved in making these fresh loans. That the RBI was cognizant of this is evident in the way that the norms have been tailor-made to incentivize the banks to lend. From allowing banks to breach the 25% ceiling on held-to-maturity investments as a consequence of lending to mutual funds, to exempting the support extended from banks' overall capital market exposure limits, the central bank has sought to ease the flow of credit to the fund houses. Still, if the recent experience of getting lenders to support the non-banking financial companies through a targeted long-term repo operation backed by 50,000 crore rupees is any pointer, clearly the banking industry, beset by bad loans, appears to have little appetite for adding any credit that it deems risky. Moreover, with the economy still in lockdown and the credit ratings of even relatively well-established companies facing a real and not too distant threat of downgrades, how willing banks would be to use this facility to lend to debt mutual funds remains to be seen. The centre may need to be ready to step in with direct intervention if the RBI's gambit fails to ease the pressure on